Jeffrey Epstein search volume would not be the second highest spike in all of Google history in the month of July 2025 if people didn't care about the issue. My assertion is yes, that he has affected his approval rating. But where we're going to start is with a little bit of disinformation, I guess. Maybe it's misinformation. I don't know. It's Harry Enton. And sometimes he's spot on when he's allowed to be. And sometimes he says some stuff where it's just, and I didn't want to spend any time at all talking about Epstein, but we're going to have to spend about 3% of our time because it is hanging over all of this stuff. And obviously, we're not going to talk about Epstein all the way to 26. But it was a major issue, and it did affect Trump's numbers, and it is a reality that we're all going to have to grapple with. But I think the theme tonight is going to be that hopefully it looks like, at least for the time being, until somebody steps in another trap, at least for the time being, that issue is kind of going away. So anyways, here is Harry Enton saying some stuff that I guess I'll try to react to.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name.
That's true. But who did you hear talk about Epstein search volume? It was me.
Coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing.
Yeah, it's still like twice as high as it was before, but
flying here a little bit. But has it impacted?
Other things have obviously gone front of mind.
Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2020.
So she's asking if it affected Trump's approval rating. And this is a question of timing, obviously. Right now, Trump is still underwater, down from +8, where he was back in the middle of June. And so my assertion is yes, that he has affected his approval rating. But if you compare where he was in 2017 August to where he is July now, that's kind of apples and oranges, a comparison. And so I don't think it's fair to say necessarily that hasn't affected his approval rating, especially when he's comparing to August 2017, which is the lowest number we ever had for Trump because of the Russian collusion hoax. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges. But this whole thing about the search volume is a little bit of a canard. First off, search volume was very high when this whole thing was imploding because, yes, a whole lot of people cared about it. Jeffrey Epstein search volume would not be the second highest spike in all of Google history in the month of July 2025 if people didn't care about the issue. Now, the fact that they're not searching anymore doesn't mean that it's not a thing because people look for information and then make up their minds and then stop searching for said information. So for a public opinion professional, I just kind of wonder about the logic here. It doesn't make sense. So he's talking about approval rating now.
It was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where
he says it hasn't gone down.
He was at 37%. So he's
the source here is Enton's aggregate. Now, I assume in the interest of transparency that somewhere Harry Enton has this recorded. I couldn't find it on his Twitter feed, but it's a selection of a lot of really garbage pollsters. And so what we see often is that when I'm moving down, Quinnipiac's moving up because they moved down 3 weeks ahead of me because they picked up a fake signal. So I think there's probably a lot of offsetting information here. But we're talking about, again, in my numbers, the Trump plunge happened starting at the beginning of July, the middle of June to the beginning of July. And so I don't think he caught it in this snapshot. I don't think he's looking at the right frame of reference to talk about Epstein, but whatever. There's no days here.
Different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him considering where he was at this point in term number one.
What do you?
Yeah, his real rating is like higher, 47, 48. But again, the CNN and aggregate is obviously going to sandbag Trump's approval. Although, interestingly, in August of 2017, Rasmussen also had Trump at 37%. So did Harry Enton's aggregate. So Harry Enton's aggregate compared to Rasmussen is harder on Trump in term 2 than it was in term 1.
What is behind it? Why there hasn't been more movement?
Yeah, why hasn't hasn't there been more movement? I think this is pretty simple. Take a
Another
look at your
canard.
nation's top issue is the Epstein case. This is the number of respondents. This isn't the percentage of respondents. This is the number of respondents. And our last CNN poll, look at this. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one. So yes, there's...
Spot the logical flaw here. Does it need to be the number one issue for it to be an important issue? No. And people tell us it was an important issue because nearly 40% of people were following it very closely. Trump's numbers plunged, and a whole lot of people said that they weren't happy with the outcome. That's all I'm saying. And so for some reason, CNN is cherry picking information right now and using logical fallacies for some reason to put Epstein in the rearview mirror, which is weird to me. I'm trying to figure it out because as we knew about 2 weeks ago on Reddit, the left had absolutely no plan, period, whatsoever. So now I don't know if new talking points came out from the CIA to CNN. Hey, we're going to run with something different. Maybe it's the redistricting fight. I don't know. Maybe they're giving Gavin Newsom a chance to shine. But I had to respond to this. This is going everywhere on the internet, and it's a whole lot of fake logic and garbage. I don't have an agenda here other than to give you people what my opinion is of the truth, and I think he's not telling it to you. So anyways, let's look at Reddit quick to see what's going on. And what you'll see is not a lot of Epstein. It looks like it's back in R&D mode. A whole lot of random stuff. They don't really seem to be liking this stuff in DC, the National Guards and the federal agents coming in to clean up Trump plans military reaction force to use against Americans. So they're trying to go this Trump fascism route again, the Orange Hitler again. White House to vet Smithsonian exhibits to ensure they align with Trump's interpretation of U.S. history. Again, the fascist stuff. Only dictators do this, obviously. U.S. hits highest layoffs since COVID, trying to counter the green shoots in the economy narrative because we had really good consumer confidence. And also, since the last time we streamed, we had the Rasmussen unemployment number came in at 7.9%, which is obviously much higher than the 4% number, but it's down a lot from the prior month, which was middle eights, I think. And I think it ties the second lowest print that we've had for unemployment since we've been doing this almost 2 years now. So anyways, new analysis finds Trump family has raked in $3.4 billion off the presidency. So they don't really know what to run with. And I think this is maybe a function of summer, or maybe this is cyclical. I don't know. MSNBC, same kind of thing. They're all over the map. Of course, the center story is Trump and DC. And so they must really not like this. Yeah, they're taking swipes at Vance, fantasies in desperate court plea to save his tariffs. But here's where the numbers are. Here's the daily snapshot. And it's back up again. It was hovering around -3, -4. He's underwater -1 now. Bad, no. Way better, again, than he was doing in August of 2017. You'd like to see better based on the wins. And so this is my point. He's not getting full credit. That's my point. Not getting full credit right now. And he's underwater 8 in the approval index, which is strong approve minus strong disapprove. He was doing a lot better. And so this is where he took his biggest hit. He lost a good chunk of strong approvers. Again, probably wasn't all Epstein, but he lost 5, 6, 7% of strong approvers. Will they come back? I don't know. You'd like to see it, but for a lot of the fall, he was underwater low single digits to basically 0. Right track down to 43, but still obviously above 40. The highest was 50%, which was a new record, best we've ever seen in 20 years. Republican approval, 83%, ticking back up. Not the 92% that Harry Enton has, because I'm not pulling from fake made up panels. 83%. I think the recent high was 86 or 87, and strong approve of GOP is going back up. It was down at 58. It's back up to 63. Democrat approval under 20. This is new in the last 2 weeks. He had actually Democrat approval above 30 for some of the time in the first couple of months. Then it was in the high 20s. He lost the 20 handle with Democrats. That's probably more what we'd expect to see. But again, a lot of Democrats were giving him benefit of the doubt, believe it or not. I mean, not a lot, but some. And they're basically gone. I don't really expect to see Democrat approval of Trump to drop much below 15 if it does at all. But I don't know. that's based on the Biden administration. So I guess we'll just see. Independents, -7. That's one of the better ones. He was +6, got down to -19, back up to -7. So this stuff is moderating, coming back somewhat. He's up 4 points among white voters. There was a big white voter response bias. He was underwater with them a point or two. Black approval's down. We've had a much higher black approval. It's at 30% right now, but he's up 7 with Hispanics. So it is what it is. It's just moving around, kind of hovering there. Here is the chart, and it's updated. I think all of this stuff here is new since the last time I showed it. So right now, he's really in where Obama was in both his first term and his second term territory at this particular week, but he is diverting from Biden. Now, if you remember 4 years ago, August 12th, really this day, exactly 4 years ago, is where the Brown stuff really started to hit the fan with Afghanistan. We had major cities falling, not long until bases get attacked and bombs start blowing up in gates, all culminating in the September 2nd, very important date, which was the 4-year anniversary of the very first chanting of F. Joe Biden at a stadium. And so that's why this is important. Next couple of weeks, things can move really fast because all of Joe Biden's political capital disappeared, poof, in 2 weeks. And I'm not saying it can be bad. I'm saying it might be bad or good. I think we're going to wait and see about what people pick up on. And that's why this is so interesting. But he's nowhere near, obviously, his first term territory because literally the deep state was trying to conduct a coup and using the mainstream media as its mouthpiece. So he's doing like 15 points better than he was 8 years ago, obviously, and is starting to diverge from Biden. Biden never really fully recovered from this. And so this will, if it continues, mark Trump as a much higher approved president than Biden. There it is. And I expect it to continue. At the very least, it should follow Obama 1, Obama 2. But again, you'd like to see it. You'd like to see it higher. Now we have a different measure of success here. This is kind of like approval rating. It's something we don't always do, but we have it. It came back since the last time we streamed, so I thought I would show it to you. Here's that institutional trust signal in a different question. Do most politicians keep their campaign promises? This is from just a couple of days ago. Only 17% say yes. 68% say no. People under 50 say yes more for some reason. I don't know. I guess naivete, but even the 40 to 49s, 24% say yes. Black voters more likely to say yes. Republicans more likely to say yes than Democrats, 22 to 19%, which is weird, but I think it's almost entirely due to the fact that Republicans control Congress right now. But look at that 8% number for independents. Pretty bad. And if we go out and look at 2024 vote, I'd just be interested in looking at that too. Harris and Trump, not far apart. 15% for Kamala Harris, 20% for Donald Trump. Anyways, here's the question that matters. Has Donald Trump kept his campaign promises more, less, or about the same as most presidents? And we're still, we're not waiting for the 2024 recall vote in this. So this might still be overemphasizing Trump a little bit, although I think less than the polling without that was a year ago. 38% more, 40% less. It's almost a complete wash. 18 to 29-year-olds, though, look at that number. They're least likely to say that Trump has kept his promises more than anybody else. That's an important one to remember. We're going to look at that later in the show. Only 22% of 18 to 29-year-olds. It's much higher with everybody else, especially the pretty pro-Trump 30 to 39 bracket, 43%. White voters say more likely, 42% to 38%, but black voters are really underwater by 25 points. Democrats, 16% more to 63% less. Republicans, it's almost the exact opposite, 66% more to 16% less. And he's underwater 5 points with independents. So this is kind of in line with what I would call like moderately okay approval rating. But again, you'd like to see it better.